Hey, what's going on guys? How all you are doing? Welcome to a brand new video tutorial on the series of a canvas, an HTML5 canvas, learning the canvas. We are on the fourth tutorial, so go ahead and watch the last ones if you haven't already. So we have gone too far on the canvas. We have learned how to draw simple things, and we have started, like in the last tutorial, we have rendered the just a balls that forms a text, and this was the code for it. So simple as that. If now I'm going to preview that for you guys. Like open a default browser, you're gonna open up in default browser, as you can see you get a nice with the circles forming actual text. Now what we want is moving this or animating this. So for animation we need to get the basic animation first, then we try to animate the whole thing in here. So firstly, for the basic animation, what we need is a loop. So a loop each time updates the position of the circle. So with a velocity, let's say the velocity is going to be 4, so each time the update function get called, or each frame, if you are familiar with frames, so each frame going to be called and add the velocity into the position. And when I say add, I mean add or subtract, like the signed or unsigned numbers. And yeah, this is how you get a circle moves around your page. So simple as that. What we need is an update function. So let's go ahead down here and do or call an update function, and we want this update to get called every single frame. Or what we can do is get this update function get called every single, like, I don't know, each about 30 milliseconds or 40 milliseconds. And we have a function for JavaScript in here. It's called setInterval, and this setInterval, you give it the handler, which means the function, and you put the function here without, like we are passing the function as an argument, so we put it without the parentheses, and we put the numbers, the timeout, and this is like in milliseconds, so we put about, I don't know, we'll declare a variable in here because we're gonna use this variable later on, and I'm gonna put this like var timeout equals about 40, and here we put the timeout, as simple as that. So when the timeout, each 40 seconds or each 40 milliseconds, this function, the set time interval, gonna call the update function for us. And for the update, what we actually want is update the position of the actual circles. So gonna be very simple, as I've said, just updating the circle's position. So what we're actually going to do is something, calling it the update function. So before we check in the collision, all of these kind of things, so we have down here, give me a second. So we have render circles with a handler of rendering circles, and yeah, so what actually can do is under the render circles function, we put a callback. So response, okay, or you can call it callback, or you could call it render, however. And here at the end we need to call the function in here. So when this get rendered, so we need to render this one each frame, and remember the update function gonna get called each frame in here. So function, and we need to put the callback in here. So you can call this, since you are using ECMAScript 6 or later on version of ECMAScript or JavaScript. So here you can push in the handlers you exactly need in here. So what we actually want to do is pass in the circle. So the current circle, since here we are looping on each circle, we want to push in the circle, the current circle. So in here, then we can get the circle from there. So if you are familiar with callbacks and function callbacks and all this kind of stuff in parameters with JavaScript, so this is going to be very easy for you to understand. So what we're actually going to do is circle, and here we can update the position. So since we have here, we're drawing with goal x, we can do goal x plus equals 10, and circle goal y plus equals 10. So this will get an arbitrary movement, so it's not affecting this one. But since we are putting the update, we're rendering, and the timeout is working up here or up there, so we put the render, and here we're putting the callback, okay, without problems. And each time we say circle, okay, goal x, I don't know what's going on with me. So x is a capital, and also the y is a capital. So refresh, we get a movement, as you can see, but this is not what we want. And you can see, because you can see this like the path, the last path of the circles, you still can see it, and you don't want to do that. You want to clear that each frame. So to do that, just call in a function. I have already set up a function just for the let me grab this function. It's over here. Give me a second. Looking for the function, the clear function. Okay, here for cleaning the screen, also setting the background color into gray, so better we can see it's a bit better. Let me define the function up here before the init definition, and we have the clear. We set the to the gray, and we just call rectangle with 0 position and the full width and the full height. Then we clear everything. So this is how you can clear the screen. So you should clear the screen, open the init. So before calling the init, let me clear the screen for us to see the cool background color. Then on each frame, before rendering that, we need to clear this as well. So calling the clear function, and we are good to go, we believe. So refresh, we see nothing. So let me go back. We have problem in here. So, and I believe, yeah, I'm using jQuery in here, so you don't care, just use your canvas. So canvas width, canvas height, and the context as well. Everything should be set up fine. As you can see, now we get the whole text moves out, as you can see, in a very cool. But what we don't actually want this animation in here. We want is get spawn them in random position at first, then all of them gonna reform and like form the text shape. So all of them gonna get into their goal position and stay in there, or just stop in there and form their position in there. So it's gonna be very simple as well. As we have used the timeouts variable, we're gonna use it as well. And there for there, so we can do as give me a second, looking for the render functions, and we need to check out if the iter counts, and so we should use the mouse release, and we should update the position every single time with the velocity. So let me grab the velocity for you guys. So the velocity gonna be this one. Okay, so let's set the velocity. We're going to set the velocity in here. So before the draw circle, we put a velocity thing. So let me just define this into the function. And yeah, we set a velocity. As you can see, the velocity is the goal x. So this x represents the goal. So our goal, where our circle gonna stop. So this is like the position under the text. And the start x, for this start x, we get a random x. So let me just grab this again. We use the math. So math library to get random x. And let me just remove this again. So since I'm using another code, on my other code I'm using jQuery, so you don't really need to care about this. So start x, we get a random position firstly for our circle. Then we use the velocity, then we minus from the start position with the goal position. Then now this is gonna do the velocity for us. So the velocity in the x and the velocity in y. Now we need to use that velocity in here. So we declare a variable under our circles. So the circle object that we're pushing in onto the array. So we declare velocity, and we give it an object, another object, velocity x and velocity y. So we're going to use this later on. And for the start, also we're going to use this on start x and start y, defining start x and start y, and setting them to the start x and start y. Here we random start according or surrounding on our web page. So we get a random starting x position, also a y position. So we need to use that. Now here for the rendering process, we're using the goal x. What we want is, we don't want to use the goal x, we want to use the start x. So let's change it to stx, which means for start x, and sty for the start y, as far as I can tell. Yeah. So this is gonna start or span firstly the circle on an arbitrary position on our web page, or random position on our web page. Then we need to move on the circle on according to that. So we need here to change the global into the start x, and here the start y. So for this, it's just gonna move on the circle on a random position, as you can see. So all of them are random, and they start moving actually towards their their position, so where they need to be, like to form the actual text we need. So for that we need to move them into the actual position. Then when they reach the position, we need to stop this, like to stop them from moving. And for that we need to check against if they were like reach the actual position they have to in order to form the actual text. For that we need to declare a variable down here. So a variable, I'm just gonna call this like an integer count. So integer count, I'm gonna set it to 0, and this one on each frame I'm going to add 1 to this integer count. So to check how many frames has been elapsed since the last stop or something, or since the update has been invoked or has been called. So we would know that this integer count has reached the actual number. Then we check against the timeout. So if the integer count equals to the timeout, then we are good to stop the circle. So we check if, we say if integer count, so integer count equals timeout, and the timeout we're using in here is the same variable we're dividing with it, minusing the goal x from the start x, then we divide it against the timeout. So that's why we are dividing in here, in order to, you can divide in a larger number here to make like the motion of the of your balls goes a little bit more slower. So if you want a slow motion in here, you can make the timeouts a little bit bigger. And yeah, we can check against this. So it's gonna give us, if integer count, here we need to start this. So that's why we're using in here another variable is called release. So this release, it checks whether or not the ball is released, like it can release the circle, it can fly free, or it's need to be stopped, or it's a rigid body or a dynamic body if you're familiar with physics keywords in here. So if there's a release equals to true, then the ball can move around freely. If not, the ball needs to stop on the actual position or on the desired position. And for the release to work properly, we need to check if the release is equals to true. Then we need to like add the the velocity. So we need to move. This one means move the circle. If not, this one's, if the release is equals to false, so we don't need to like use these instructions in here. So we need to put them under an if statement. So we circle release, which means equals to true. So we're gonna use this one, and we're gonna put this down here. So we're gonna know, and we check this one, and here we need to put it false instead of true. So yeah, I'm sorry for this, guys. Just set it to false true, and this should do the job for us. So when it's gonna be released, and make sure to set the default variable in here, or the default value, to true. So it's gonna just start moving when it's panned on the actual web page. So once the web page is gonna be reloaded, it's just gonna start moving. Then when it reaches the actual desired position of the text, it's gonna move by changing this to a false. So now we need to refresh, go back, check this one, and we're getting a random number or random position down there. So let me check this, guys. So it wasn't just putting the value in here correctly, like we put in another x in here. So just figure this out. Now refresh. Now you should see a text forming like this animation. It's really nice animation, this one. You should get it by doing just this code. If you have any problems, please make sure to post them in the comments. We're very happy to reply to you as soon as possible. So as you can see, but here we're not getting the interaction, like the mouse collision with the text. So what we need is the mouse collision with the text, and also when we free the balls from their actual position, like to make them fly around the web page, we don't need from them to get out of the scope of this page. So for that, I already have a function that checks the collision with any circle. So what we need is draw a circle under our surrounding our mouse. So let's say the mouse has a circle surrounding, and when that circle collide with any other circle, so like this is how the collision gonna be checked. Look, you can free the actual balls or do something. So for that, we need to render out a circle for the mouse and also check the collision. So we already have set up a function for this. We have in this down here. So I'll just copy paste this. Make sure to copy paste in here. It's very simple. It just checks the distance between the radius of the circle. So here you put the first ones you can choose any balls, but here I'm gonna put the actual circle mouse radius, and the other one we're gonna put the actual circles that has been rendered or are being rendered on the screen in here. So we need to call this under our update function. We're gonna check for our circles, and also we need to check against the events, so when the mouse moves and when the mouse stops. For that I also have two functions in here. It's very simple, so you can check out the events on Google, on JavaScript events actually. So this on mouse enter, we're just gonna get the mouse X, and from the event X, and we set it like in there, and we say mouse on screen equals true. And also for the on mouse out, we set the mouse X and the mouse Y for undefined, and this mouse X is an object that we define up here. So let me just very fast define this object in here. Say mouse equals an object, and it has an X, so undefined, defined, and it has a Y, also gonna be an undefined, and also gonna have a radius. So let me choose a 30 pixels for the mouse radius. You can choose anything. This is gonna be constant. So this is gonna be the mouse, and here we need to activate the events that we're using. So for that, we're gonna check window.add event listener. I'm gonna use this for mouse enter or mouse move, mouse enter, I don't know. Okay, mouse. Okay, let's use the mouse move. Okay, for now, yeah. So on mouse enter, and here the other one gonna have the same event actually, and it's gonna be for mouse out. So that's here need mouse out function, and this is gonna trigger the event and set the X and Y positions for the actual mouse position. For that, we can check against this actually. Very simple to do. All we need is under our update function, and yeah, we can console.log our mouse object in order to check whether or not this is working. So that's one of the really things that I like about JavaScript, is you can just console log your objects, your variables, to in order to debug your application, to know what is actually going behind the scenes. You know, like I'm using this console log but taking too long. So when I move, as far as you can see, so for the mouse position, it seems to be working fine. Everything is working fine. So when we move the mouse, we get the actual position. Now we need to check if the mouse has a collision with the actual circles are being drawn on the screen. So for that, we use this function in here. So it is collide. It just checks between both the center of the, like the distance between both circles actually. I'm sorry for this. So all you need is a circle collide, and here we pass in the first X, the Y, the radius, and the other X and Y and radius belongs to the first circle and the second circle. So for the first circle, I'm gonna use the actual circle. So I'm going to say circle.x, and here we have is stx, since it's moving, since here we are like adding the actual position to the stx. So this is the variable thing, not using the global or the goal x. So stx, sty, and pretty much we use the circle in here. So we have radius, or I believe I have already defined that like a global variable. So let me check this very fast. Yeah, we have a circle radius variable here for defining the actual radius of all the circles, because all of them have the same one. If you're intending to use different circles for different radiuses for different circles, you can define on each circle define its own radius. So in the objects in here, up here, you got the points. Actually, it's very simple. And here we use the mouse.x, mouse.y, and mouse radius, and the mouse dot radius we have it defined in there, so we use just mouse dot radius, and this is gonna return true or false. True on collision, false or not. So we're checking against the true, which means if this is going to be true, so we are in collision, and there we can do like circle dot release equals true. So here when we collide with the actual, like when the mouse collides with any circle, the circle or the desired circle gonna move out of space and start flying around the web page. So now save, Control S. Now we need to change this or refresh. So we should get our really nice text up here, but when we're moving the circle, we're not getting anything actually. So there seems to be something. So why not? Well, let's check again. Yeah, there was something, but I didn't know what is it. But yeah, this is the code. Something believe I haven't spelled this or haven't typed the start X or start Y correctly, so make sure to put everything in a correct way. So here we're releasing this, and here for the color, to make the color actually changes. So it's just taking math.floor.random times colors.length, and this color.length is gonna be like an array of colors we need to from the circles to take on, like to change the colors on that array. So let me just copy this array. I have already made this array from the hexadecimal color values. You can choose any color values and put them in here, and make sure to change in nothing actually, just the colors array name, and everything should be looking fine in here. But one thing is we're not rendering, let me just go back, yeah, here into the color. So make sure to put in the circle's eye and the color in order to make sure that everything gonna look fine. And one thing I haven't mentioned about is here, like when the iter count equals timeout, which means the ball gonna be stopped, like equals to 4, it's not gonna be released, which means we need to change the velocity. So the actual velocity it has is kind of weird, like just taking a linear velocity towards the goal X or the goal Y. So we need to make this or randomize this a bit. For that, we're gonna use some random. Actually, I've got this a bit of things from the code bin from someone, and I tried to simplify it as simple as possible actually. So let me just grab this as fast as possible. This is gonna make your velocity looks a bit weird and a bit random, so which kind of cool. And every circle is gonna have its own random velocity, and this is gonna change the color. Now you should see some kind of randomized, colorful or colored circles in here. So as soon as I do, yeah, you can see it's very simple, very nice in here. All the circles gonna get out, but one thing, as you can see, we are not checking against the collision with the window, so all of them gonna get out out of scope the actual window. So to do that, it's actually very simple as well. So we check just against the window size, width and height, and we check whether or not, and then reverse the actual velocity, or just multiply the velocity with -1 each time. So as you can see, we check the circle.stx. I grabbed this from another code actually, my code. So the circle.stx, if plus the radius is greater than the inner width, or the minus the circle radius is less than 0, which means we're checking both the left side and the right side, or actually the right side and the left side. I don't know. I can't even distinguish between the left and right. Anyway, so here we're checking about the x, and here the y, and then we're multiplying with -1, which means gonna take the reverse direction of the actual board. For this, we're gonna make sure that nothing gonna get out of the scope of the window. So as you can see, when we click do that, everything gonna just collide, as you can see in here, in a very nice way. So all of them gonna stay on the window, and here what you can do is check on the spacebar. So with the spacebar, like back in time or reverse time, when you click on the space, all of them gonna get back to their own position and reform the actual text. So if you really want to do that, like this is the video, so the video has been ended in here, you can just get out and try to implement this your own. But if you want, we are going to do is the checking against the space bar, click, and all of this kind of stuff. So I have also done this code, so to make a little bit the video looks a bit, not longer. So I've already made this for us. So what I'm going to do is get the space bar key. For that, using the JavaScript actually, the standard API from JavaScript. And here we're also gonna check against the spacebar click. So we have a variable on, let me go back. So we have a variable space key press equals to false, so which means whether or not the space key has been pressed or not. And on here, window.add event key down, and E is the event, and we check against the key code. If the key code equals 32, and this 32 is the spacebar key code, you can choose, or you can like Google search the key code of your key on the keyboard in order to make this works for you. I'm using spacebar. The space has 32, and the space key equals true. otherwise the key up, which means the space is not pressed, and we need to make this to false. And here we check if the ball, or check against the space key. So let me just do this between those, and we check if space key pressed, and we check if the ball is released, which means the ball is flying around, it's not stopped. So here we can just make the ball takes or go back to its original place, or go X to reform actual text, which means doing back in time effect or transaction. So here we're going to use this circle. So that should check out if we press the space bar and the ball is released or free. And here we need to make them take a reverse velocity, which means take their go back into the actual or the go X to reform the text. For that we need to use the velocity, to reverse the velocity to its original position. I have this formula in here, so it's very simple actually, doing as the same as the first one. So just calculating the velocity x by circle dot global x minus circle dot the current x, and divided by the arbitrary, but we don't need the arbitrary in here, we need the timeout. So let me just time, and this as well, timeout. Okay, and here we're plussing the 50 because we're minusing from the iter count up here, minus 50, to make it takes a bit slower animation, to slow the animation. And we need also to add a 50 pixels so for the velocity, and then we just change the velocity.x equals to the new velocity, and that all what we need to do. So I believe that I have something in here. Just delete this. Okay, so no errors. That should do. When you click the space bar, everything gonna get into the actual place. So let me just refresh this. Let me get rid of this down here. So okay, now try to freeing up some circles. They colliding with the window, everything is working fine. Now clicking the space bar, all of them gonna get back slowly to their or to their original position, like this. Just freeing them, click space bar, getting back into the original position. As simple as that. So that was it. Very simple, very nice as well animation. What you can do is add some color changing, some random radiuses for the circles in here. You can also make your own text, I don't know, just taking randomized colors, things. You can do a loads of shape in here and loads of effect. So if you are intending to, please make me sure to allow me or notify me on my Facebook or any Twitter page to see what you have done so far with this code. That was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. That was very simple, and it's really easy as well. If you needed this source code, I'm gonna be available on GitHub, so I'm gonna post every source code in here on GitHub. So please make sure to support us by subscribe, a like button. That will be appreciated so much. So that was it. I will catch you in the next one.